Welcome in to the Gaming Discourse. I am Tyler Frater alongside Richard Day the Cruz.
Good morning.
And Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater, who is not in today. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos. Claire de Lune review is the latest video up, and I'm working on a few other videos right now. It is August 12th, 2021. How are you doing today?
Doing good. I got a bit of I think because I think we're going to start to have storms this week.
Yes.
Or we're having storms
had
now.
A lot.
Like this morning I woke up and my head is just congested. So I'm not sick, but it's just like there's just pressure in my head and I'm like, I know it. There's something around here.
Quick announcement. We will have a schedule change sometime soon. So you'll have to follow us on social media. I'll probably post something about it on the YouTube channel. We record podcasts Thursday night and then publish them either Thursday night, Friday morning, depending on a few things. But it looks like we'll be recording the podcast to either like Monday, Tuesday nights. I'm not really sure. We've come to it. We'll have this conversation when we're not recording.
Sure.
But probably early in the week instead of late in the week. And that may start with our next podcast. So we may not have a podcast next week. It may be next week's podcast will be the Monday, not next Monday, but the Monday after. And we'll start having the cycle will continue. Since we're going to talk about Returnal in a second. The cycle will continue.
The spice will flow.
Yes. Starting on Mondays. So we'll have an early week podcast rather than a late week podcast. Format will stay the same. But yeah, so we'll post about it on Twitter whenever we figure out exactly when things are going to take shape, and we'll let everybody know. Now that that's out of the way. What was that?
I wasn't told about this.
I'm sorry. Now that's out of the way. You said you have played some things.
Yeah, not
here and there.
I haven't played anything new. I've just been playing more Apex Legends. Okay. And I'm getting better at the game.
Okay. Well, that's always nice.
It is always nice. I'm not sure how to start this conversation.
Oh, what kind of conversation are we having?
Apex is a game that, yes, it's a first-person shooter. Yes, it's a battle royale game.
Sure.
There's a lot to think about when you play that game. Mm-hmm. Much like you would think about things when you're playing Overwatch. Oh, who's on that team? Who do I use to counteract that?
Because it's a hero shooter.
Right, it's a hero shooter.
Yeah.
You don't know until you encounter an enemy team. Like who is they have. So whoever you choose, you have to make sure that person is right for whatever group you're with. If it's a friend group, you have more leeway to like talk to each other, decide who you're going to use. But if you're playing by yourself with random players, you kind of hope that you pick the right character that you want to use in order to help
create some synergy.
Yeah.
So you don't want a Hanzo and a Widowmaker on the same team.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
So I use several different characters, but like for instance, there's a character called Loba, and she's really great because her ultimate, she opens up a black market that creates a circumference area on the map, and anything in that circumference area you can loot. Like you don't have to go up to it. You can just you can open up the menu and then you can you can loot it. And it's really neat. The downside is that all the items in that area start floating. So if there's enemies around, they'll know you're doing something.
Yeah.
And then when you take something, it kind of phases from that area and leaves a trail of where it's going.
Oh, okay.
So enemies can see you. Now, at the end game, like if you're in like top 3, top
giveaway.
5. Not only is it a dead giveaway, but how will that help you in the final?
Yeah, because you're already super looted up. You would think. You would hope. Yeah.
So
that is interesting.
So it's great for the start.
So she's more of like an early game.
Yeah.
Early game.
Yeah.
Or she benefits more early game than late game. Do you think I haven't played Apex since it came out. Are heroes built that way? Like there are heroes, this hero's special is more of a mid game thing than a late or early. Are they built that way? Or do you think some heroes happen to have abilities that are better suited for specific types of the specific moments in the game? While other heroes are like anytime.
There's both. And then also there's the 50-50 factor of who is playing that character and how smart are they, how do they understand that character? Because there's one of the starting characters, Pathfinder, he's a robot who's a support character, but his support is mobility. So he can get around to places, and you would probably use him to kind of scope out areas or even, well, no, actually that's it. Just scope out areas, or he gets a higher, viewpoints advantages. But like his grapple can grab a character and pull that character towards him.
Both enemy and friendly?
No, just enemy.
Oh, just enemy. Okay.
If you choose to use it that way, like nobody really uses it that way, but you can.
Okay.
And so if you were to be aggressive with him, you can surprise somebody by doing that because no one really does that. Okay. I've done it before, and it's very fun.
When you go down, can you pull someone that's like crawling? Because I know in Apex you don't die.
Question. I don't know.
That would be cool because if you down someone and then someone's like the teammate's going over to help them out, you could like pull them towards you and you just take them out before they're able to get revved. Or I don't know how it works. I don't play Apex.
Right. No, that's actually a really neat idea.
I'm a tactical genius.
And it's like...
I'm the Patton of my generation.
And that's a great idea. And you might be able to. I mean, that could probably be disputed easily right now. But the thing is, do you want to try doing that in the middle of a firefight?
Yeah, it's all. What's the phrase? It's all situational, but there's a different. It's all contextual.
Yeah,
it's all contextual. Yeah.
And another big thing about Apex is you really have to know your map. You really getting familiar with the map is very, very important because you can open up a door. Oh, there's a guy there. Close the door, jump up to like the second floor, and like there's an area that can go down behind him if he thinks you're still out there and stuff like that. So I've been playing ranked arenas.
Ranked, wow.
Yeah. Well, why
does anybody play ranked? It's never any fun. I don't know why we do it.
So I have two friends who apparently have been playing Apex for a very long time because they have ridiculous stats and they have ridiculous badges. Like badges are like your achievements and what you've done. And I always saw them playing, but I never reconnected with them until, I got invited by them to play. And so I play with them, and honestly, they carry me. But, they were playing ranked Apex matches today. So I jumped in and we won a large majority of them. And I did well myself. But it is absolutely like, Milsim's just very much a conversational type game. There's a constant like, what is that person doing? Where are they? Are they right next to me? And the pinging system is excellent as well. I mean, they created it. So letting guys know, your teammates know where guys are so that you can try to get the upper hand. But I'm not good at the shooting still. And I don't think I ever will be because I have this problem of always shooting in the mid-torso area. Okay. You're supposed to be shooting at the head.
At the head.
Always. But I can never do it. And even when I am shooting, I keep telling myself, go for the head. But like there's a disconnect there. So I lose a lot of firefights, but there's a lot of firefights I win. And it gets very exciting. And there's a lot to talk about and discuss with that game. But I think that's one of the reasons why it's getting more and more popular recently is due to like the fun you can have learning to play that game. But it's also not for everyone. So obviously.
Yeah, that's battle royales.
Yeah, right.
Typically that's the case.
And I've been playing a lot, and I'm worried because it's kind of on my mind always. Like right now, it's like, well, what am I going to do when I get home? I might jump on Apex, but I'll burn out easier. That's just how it is.
Yeah. So I've, it's funny because I played Squad. I played Squad this weekend, and the two games that I've played the most are Squad and Returnal. I was going to make a video about Chernobylite, and then I started Returnal, and I loved Chernobylite, but then Returnal sort of completely absorbed my time, and so I started taking notes, and so I started a script on Returnal, and I got to the credits in Returnal. It's a roguelike, so roguelikes never end. They go on forever. Right. But I beat, quote unquote, or finished whatever. I got to the credits on Returnal.
Keep going. We'll talk about.
You look like you had an epiphany for a second.
No, not an epiphany, but like there's two things I'm trying to keep in my head to talk to you about. Right
gotcha. So I love Returnal a lot. It's really fun. The combat gets phenomenal. But I still, now that I've beaten it, quote unquote, whatever, I still think that the weapon selection is there's just something wrong with it. I feel like the game is either too easy or it's ridiculously hard. There's no middle ground, and there are 3 different weapons. Usually, the 2 assault rifles. Usually, I get one of those assault rifles, and the past couple times I have gotten these assault rifles, and my attempt ended. Both of them were crashes. Other than that, the third, I had 3 really long attempts.
Okay.
Right? When I got the assault rifle or the other gun. I'm calling both guns assault rifles. Okay. 2 times I got super far, great stats, and the game crashed, which is horrible. The third time I went, I found a new area, and it's a really cool area, and I could see why I think you were getting to how creepy it is. Yeah. It is a very creepy area. And the first time I got into that area with an assault rifle, I went all the way through, got to the boss, beat the boss in 1 try.
Congrats.
So it's like, I also had health packs, but it's one of those things where I don't know. I felt happy that I did it, but the assault rifle is just so insanely powerful that it's just like, I feel like if I had any other gun, I would have died. Because there's no way I would have been able to do that with some of the other guns. Now, the bolt gun, I don't remember what it's called. You fire bolts, and then they have electricity that connects them. That one is really good. It can also, that one is more contextual, to use that word again, than the assault rifle, because some of them fire the bolts in a 5-bolt spread.
Yes.
And it fires just like a dice. So that's how the 5 bolts are. Like there's 1, 2, 3, 4 corners and then 1 in the middle. So, and it fires 2 of those spreads. If you are attacking enemies on the ground, it's amazing because you just shoot at the ground and now they are in a net. And if you're funneling enemies through like a hallway, all you got to do is just keep shooting in front of you, and they run into this trap and they're getting damage all the time, and it's great. Enemies in the air is different because those bolts don't ignite until they attach to something. And so if there is nothing behind the bolts and you fire twice and miss twice, you have to reload, and the bolts fly back. So if there's a flying enemy in front of you and then the wall is super far away, or there's no wall, you just miss. You don't hit the target. It doesn't feel like it has the same auto aim as some of the other weapons do. You have to be a little more precise with it.
You're right. For the most part, I did end up finding one that had homing on it.
It did? Okay.
Yeah,
and
so
I may just suck with it, and it may have perfect homing. I don't know.
No, like a roguelike, everything is...
There's a lot of different stuff. Yeah.
RNG rolls, so...
But I tried to break out and try different weapons, and it's just like I was just getting frustrated because I pick up the assault rifle and everything would just be at my mercy.
Just wreck it.
And I'd pick up any other weapon and it's like, oh, hope for the best. It didn't feel like there was a good middle ground there. So I guess that's and I'll have to flush that out more in what I'm writing, but that's sort of my complaint about Returnal. I don't know. I think the parasite thing is, maybe one problem I have is I just want it to be Hades because every boon you get is great, and parasites aren't boons, and there's also artifacts, and all artifacts have benefits. They don't have any bad sides. Artifacts, or most of the artifacts. I don't know if there's an artifact that has a bad side. Some of them may not be as good as others, but they all help you to some degree.
There's artifacts that just don't do anything. It's like, okay, why do you have this?
But parasites have a good and a bad thing that they do, right? Which is part of the fun. But so many parasites, I feel like 75% of the time, I just pass up on a parasite because I'm just like, there's no benefit here. There was a parasite where it... what did it do? So it removes... I don't know if they're all randomized or how it works, but I found a parasite, and the benefit was it removes a malfunction. Yes. So in the game, if you pick up something that is... that has a growth on it or a virus or something, you could get a malfunction that could cause you to have like fall damage or something, and you have to fix the malfunction by completing some kind of task. So I found this parasite, and it fixes one malfunction either in the future when you get it or one you have on you right now.
Currently, yeah.
But the con was all future malfunctions are more harsh. Yeah. Now that's a short-term gain versus for the rest of your run, a long-term con, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the benefit there? The benefit is I have to have a really, 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 really bad malfunction for me to want to pick up that parasite, and that kind of sucks. So I guess I'm disgruntled about it because I feel like the game would be better if parasites had better benefits most of the time. But I pass up on parasites so much that I just didn't like it. I just don't like it. Maybe it's not a thing where it's objectively bad. Maybe it's just my preference. But I feel like the game would be funner if the parasites had better benefits. But when I go through it right now, it's just like a lot of the parasites I just don't need. And so it feels like a part of the game's mechanic. One of the cool mechanics in the game just doesn't matter because I'm just not using so many of them. But maybe that's a preference thing. You told me last week that you just pick up parasites left and right.
Yeah, because I usually use... I don't have any good examples in my head, but I remember specifically using parasites to counteract each other.
Yeah.
Like I would specifically get 2 different ones that had differing effects that would basically cancel each other out. So I would get the benefits, but none of the
and that would be cool.
Malfunctions.
That is neat. And it does create some interesting dynamics when you pick up parasites and artifacts and weapons and stuff. You get the weird combinations of things working. Hades, a lot of roguelikes are the same way. But yeah, so that's my spiel. I love the story. I think it's told oddly, and I think there are certain reasons for that. It hit me this week that it is a Lovecraftian cosmic horror story. It's about a woman an astronaut, an explorer who crash lands on a planet, and she begins to assimilate to the alien culture. And so you learn the alien language, you pick up alien technology and it attaches to herself. Yep. So her suit sort of assimilates almost like the Borg in Star Trek. The parasites, I think, are a cool example because that actually physically gets into her skin and her body. And so as she does this, she starts to not only sort of physically change, but I think she psychologically begins to change. And there are really cool audio logs that you find early on where you pick it up and you play it, and the Celine in the audio log sounds nuts, sounds crazy.
Oh, yeah.
She's speaking in metaphor. She sounds like the aliens. And then the Celine you're playing as is like, I do not want to become that person. Yeah. And so while the game is not outwardly scary, because the monsters aren't that scary and there's some creepy sights and stuff, the more terrifying aspect of the game is that it's about a character who is literally watching themselves go insane.
Yes.
And they don't know if that's inevitable or not. And I think that is such a cool dynamic. And I think they do it fairly well. Yeah. When I hit credits, there's stuff that happens at the end of the game, blah, blah, blah. And so it left me, it doesn't fill in all the blanks. No. Which is cool. So I'm excited to see what else I can find and what else I can piece together. But I really like the story, and I think Celine is a really interesting character. And I do not know how Housemarque, because if you remember, Housemarque, like 4 years ago, they announced that they were going to do a battle royale.
Yes.
You know? And so sometime in between, Housemarque saying, well, we can't make these types of games anymore because they just don't sell well enough. So they're going to do battle royale, and everyone was super sad. It was like, oh man, well, that's no fun. And then all of a sudden they made Returnal. It came out of nowhere. So in between those is a really cool story about Housemarque thinking we're going to have to make a battle royale game to making this really cool roguelike, you know? It had to do with Sony somehow. So I don't know if Sony was like, hey, we're going to launch a console. Why don't you make a game for, I don't know how it worked.
Yeah. But, I think at least I hope that after a couple of years of particular genres gaining headway and having their places in like the pantheon of that genre, like being set, other developers would look at them and just kind of be like, you know what, we're not going to touch it. And maybe Housemarque thought that with their battle royale they were making, because I think I don't have a source, but I think it was confirmed that they
canceled it.
Yeah,
as far
stopped
as I
working
could
on
see.
it to go to Returnal, which apparently in the long run was good because according to Sony, Returnal is a success, which is great. But it's a very, very, very good game. Excellent game.
Yep.
And I think that
I sound like I complain about it a lot. I really did enjoy the hell out of it. There's just certain things that really bothered me about it.
Well, yeah, and I think what you complain about is not the game as a whole, and I think it's just a particularity that you have because I had a boss fight after the Overgrowth Ruins at the beginning of Act 2.
Yes.
The first part, when you get to that boss, the organ.
Oh, that boss is
cool. He's on the organ. I had the rocket launcher, and I beat him in one go.
Yeah.
And like you said, like you're not a fan of the rocket launcher, and I was kind of a fan of the rocket launcher because I love glass cannons.
Sure.
And I was able to do it in one go, and it was very, very. It was very fulfilling, but at the same time, I was like, "Crap! I hope I don't do this the rest of the game." You know, but that, I don't think that your complaints ruin the entire game as a whole. So
I think it's a preference thing.
Yeah.
I even went on the Reddit and Googled and to see if other people had the same complaint I did.
Yeah.
And it didn't really seem like that. Other people complained about the shotgun. I do think the shotgun is strange.
Yeah.
So I don't think but I think it's just a preference thing. Maybe is that I don't know. It just seems to me that I find these two weapons, and maybe that's the point. But it doesn't feel like in Hades, where for a while I didn't really know which weapon I wanted, and then I found the bow, and that's like my favorite weapon. And the last weapon you unlock in Hades was a weapon that I tried for a bit, and that's also a weapon I used here and there. So I wasn't really sure. Like, I wasn't sure off the top of my head. Like, I didn't think to myself, all other weapons are useless. I could see how other weapons would be useful. And the other thing about Hades was that you also could just get the weapon you wanted from the start. And that's the other thing that I don't like about Returnal is you have to, and
hope the chest had the gun.
You have to hope the chest has the gun that you want, instead of just starting with a gun. Which can be demoralizing, especially when you're 20 minutes into an attempt and you still haven't found the gun. So you're like, you know what?
Proficiency is
I'm
like
just gonna jump off I'm just gonna jump off a cliff and restart this because I know as soon as I get to a boss, I'm not gonna be able to beat it with this pistol or whatever the hell I have.
And why do they give you a pistol right before the boss, like every time?
See, I have a theory.
Oh, okay.
I can't confirm this though.
Okay.
I have a theory that it is an acknowledgement that certain alt fires are just trash against bosses. So those pistols have alt fires, or not necessarily optimized, but they're there as a safety net. That's my theory. That could be completely wrong because I haven't picked up those pistols to go into boss fights. Because I have the assault rifle. But like certain alt fires against certain bosses seem completely useless. And that's the other tough thing about it. It's tough to test these things. Because if I want to test a certain alt fire against a certain boss, it's 5 hours of my time to find a weapon with this alt fire, get to the boss, fight the boss, test it for a few minutes, and go, okay, well, after one scientific test, here's my results.
I have a feeling that you want to like walk up to like Housemarque lead developers with a paper of like all your complaints and. What were you thinking of this, huh? What was it? Huh?
It's like that episode of Parks and Rec where Ron Swanson writes letters to people. Dear Housemarque, I do not like... No, I loved Returnal. It engrossed me. And Chernobyl Light's a good game. I haven't touched it because I just sunk, no pun intended, into Returnal. But go ahead.
I know I try not to spoil it, but after you beat the final boss of Act 1... Like I said, I felt like the rug was pulled out from under me with that ending, because I thought I got to the end at first. After you beat the boss with the floating tiles, and
let's talk about that. All right, so we'll do a spoiler right here. Spoiler thing. We'll put the thing in the description so you can skip ahead.
Okay.
whatever. Okay, so we can talk openly about this.
Okay. So
you beat the third boss, which is an awesome boss.
Which is a very, very cool boss. Probably my favorite boss of the game, probably. And this is at a point where you, as Celine, get to the final, like your main goal at that time.
The White Shadow.
Yes, the White Shadow. You find out who's making the White Shadow, and you kind of activate whatever beacon they have, and then your ships find you.
Sure, they rescue you. Whatever.
Yeah, not coalition. Federation, whatever.
Yeah,
finds you,
scouts,
saves you. They take you back home. Your nightmare is over. You live your life, and then you pass away. You have children. They grow up. You pass away, and then of course the viewpoint is of your coffin like lowering down, and then you wake up on the planet again. Mm-hmm. And then Celine starts freaking out because she thought she did it. At that point, I had already been playing for a very long time because I'm not good at these games, I guess. And so there were still questions I had at that point. But yeah, at that point, for me personally, I used the phrase, I felt like the rug got pulled out from under me because I thought my goal was complete and that all the story I would get would be through the logs and through the things that you pick up and the audio logs and stuff. So I really enjoyed that like kind of bait and switch moment.
I thought that was very
and I'm
neat
not sure
too.
if you felt the same way.
I liked it. I think, and there are a lot of things I need to put together about the story and figure out. There's a lot of metaphor.
There is.
Have you gotten credits to roll? Have you gotten to
I've gotten credits to roll, yeah.
You have. So you know about the ending then.
So not the final complete ending, but I got the.
Okay, so she sees throughout the game, she sees a bunch of like 1 second visions.
Yeah.
There's a forest, there's something underwater. Her eyes open up and she has like and the ending, all those things are put together.
Yes.
Did you see that cutscene? I'm trying to be careful here because I don't want to spoil things.
I'm pretty certain.
Okay, because if you got to the ending credits, I think we're safe, and I'm safe in talking about this. I think
I got to roll credits, but I didn't get to roll credits for the third act.
The third act, yeah. Okay. And the last boss we both defeated was underwater.
Yep.
And
then he sinks back into the
hole. And
hole.
it's his waist.
Yeah.
And okay, so
and
I
he
think
sinks into the hole and you jump after him. Yeah.
So all right, so it almost that ending where everything gets pushed the car accident. I'll just say it.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
fine.
the car accident. Yeah.
The car accident. All right, so the car accident for the first, half of that cutscene, it's almost as if, wait a second, is this all a metaphor? Is this she's not an astronaut? This is her coping, something. But then at the end of that cutscene, the astronaut appears in the street, right?
Yeah.
And that's what causes the car wreck. So I haven't thought about it a whole lot, and I'm sure if you went to the Reddit page, someone's figured it out already. But it makes me think, okay, so how is the crash connected to her job as a scout? And then and et cetera, et cetera. Now, there are other things you find throughout the story that it makes it seem like Celine like she somehow lacked confidence. There's a weird part, and when you go into the house, you get these weird flashback things. Yeah. And she gets her letter to the Astra Scout program or whatever, and she's denied access. She says it says did not qualify, whatever, right? When she gets this letter.
I remember that one.
Now, on the computer, right before this happens, it makes it seem as though she changed her results somehow to get her accepted rather than what was supposed to happen, which was rejection. There's also an audio log where she talks about that she knows the trip she's going to go on is like a one-way trip. So there's a lot of weird like red herrings in different directions.
There's lots of log discussions on your computer in the ship with psychiatrists as well and doctors.
Yeah, and her two eyes that can be
Heterochromia, right? She has heterochromia sometimes.
And I think I read that can be caused either genetically or through trauma, if I remember correctly. And with the car accident, that would make sense, of course, right?
Yeah.
And then the ending of that cutscene, she also sees whatever that monster is, whatever that alien being is at the end of that cutscene.
Yeah.
So the cutscene starts off and it's straight. And you're like, oh, this is actually something that happened to her that has nothing to do with the planet. And then the end of it's like, nope.
Yeah.
It has to do with White Shadow and the planet somehow. So it's like connecting all those pieces. I haven't been able to do, but it makes it really interesting though, I think.
Yeah.
And I think Celine, for a character, the only character in the game that talks, I don't think any of the bosses say anything. They make her really interesting, especially I think with her watching herself go crazy.
Yeah.
And being terrified of that, which I think is just a really cool terrifying thing to witness in a game, I guess, or whatever. Cool concept. But anyway, I think I'm.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of conversation to have about that game.
I think I'm done. I think I'm done talking about Returnal. I think I'll go back to playing Returnal. The one other thing that I kind of am disappointed with Returnal is it looks really good, but it's really monochromatic. There's like a blue area.
Yeah.
There's the red wastes, and in its defense, it's called the red wastes, but it's all red. And then
it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Everything looks great, but there's like, it's always one color.
Yes.
The echoing wastes, all green. Jungle, it's green and brown. The snow place looks cool, but it's all white and blues. So there's not a whole lot of, and that's sort of disappointing, I think, because I don't know.
Yeah.
It when it contrasts with how cool some of the enemies and projectiles look, kind of makes me wish the environment looked that cool in some ways. Just more color to it than a lot of, 3 or 4 color set pieces. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because look at something again. I know you can't compare everything to Hades, but look at Hades. Hades has each one is sort of color coded, but they also have other things that do other effects, and all the enemies do different types of colors and stuff like. So there's a bunch of stuff on screen, which is fun and keeps it from being sort of monotonous. But Returnal doesn't have that. Yeah. It does look really good though. It does.
It does look really good, but it's not a. There is consistency to a fault in that game, and it always looks good whenever I play it. But like, for instance, something like Ratchet and Clank, or even like Resident Evil 8, even though it's not like an innately a PS5 game, there's always like, oh wow, look at that. Oh wow, look at that. Oh wow. Like, I know that the first stage of the first act is different than the first stage of the second act, but
it's just a different color scheme.
They're interchangeable, really. Yeah. So
almost.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So, I know what you mean.
Okay. Okay. We'll move on.
Yeah.
We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the very beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found just beneath this episode. Please give them a click, it helps us greatly. If you're feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
So a lot has happened for the 3rd or 4th week in a row at Activision Blizzard.
The ball is still rolling.
And we're going to do another big ol' recap segment. And we'll do the same thing we did last week. Bunch of stories. I'll try and do one sentence or a couple sentences of summary. There's a big chunk of a story I want to read in here, and then we'll get discussion. So 2 stories came out this week. Bloomberg's Jason Schreier wrote one, and over at the Washington Post, Shannon, I think it's Lau. It's either Lau or Lou. I'm not sure. They both spoke to dozens of people about Blizzard. I think Jason Schreier said he spoke to 50.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Yeah,
but there was a lot of so there was a lot of crossover in these stories. And again, I don't want to. We've had to do a lot of summary. We can't cover everything.
It's too much.
So I don't want to sound like we're belittling things or sort of glazing over stuff. But there's a lot of stuff that we're just not going to talk about. Both stories, while different, touched on the same themes: pervasive sexism and harassment, an impotent HR department, and the prevalence of alcohol that really only exacerbated the company's problems. Frances Townsend, who was the executive sponsor of the Activision Blizzard King's Women's Network, in an email called the initial lawsuit distorted and untrue. We were talking about her, comparing her statement and Brack's statement last week, because it was like two different statements. There's a portion of the Washington Post story I wanted to read about her, and this is according to two sources. Quote, following her email, Townsend's email, Townsend held a listening session on a recorded Zoom call with the women at Blizzard to hear their stories. On the call, she defended her email, saying she had followed legal counsel's guidance on language and that the end result no longer sounded much like her voice. The call reached the maximum number of participants, 500, and for those who could not attend, management said it would share a recording afterward. 5 days later, Blizzard women received an update that the company was unable to send/share a recording of the Friday Women's Network call at this time, and that it was not appropriate to share personal concerns voiced by employees, end quote. Townsend stepped down from the Women's Network on July 23rd, which was the same day as the call. Meanwhile, first reported by Kotaku, Diablo 4 director Louis Burriaga and lead designer Jesse McCree, along with World of Warcraft designer Jonathan LeCroft, were let go from Blizzard, and Kotaku said Activision Blizzard did not give a reason for their departure, so we don't know if it's connected or unconnected.
I think Jesse McCree, whose namesake is also in Overwatch, he was one of the ones photoed in the Crosby fixture that was published with the story with Kotaku. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing to note. Do you have anything else? We've talked about this story 2 or 3 weeks now, and there's only so many times you could say this is horrible. Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all.
Whoa!
Sorry. I mean, that call reached maximum number of participants. How many participants were not available to be in that call either?
Yeah.
That's enough to raise concern. Well, the whole situation is enough to raise concern, but Frances Townsend. Sorry, I felt like I heard that name before, but yeah, was she let go, or did she just like?
No, she stepped down from that post, and I'm not sure if she's. I think I could be wrong about this. I think I remember reading she's still with the company.
Okay,
but I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on that. But that's something that I don't know.
It's just strange to step down the same day that you have a call. Is it because she was perturbed by what she heard in the call, or is it because she just wanted to?
It's interesting, and she hasn't been with Activision Blizzard for very long. I think it was this year. She joined sometime this year. Yeah, so that's something off the top of my head I'm not sure of. Yeah,
right.
It seems as though Activision Blizzard has been really unprepared for all this. They were prepared to say the lawsuit is bullshit,
right,
and then. And
not prepared for all the proof that was behind it.
Exactly, which seems I don't know, which seems like it just seems comical almost.
Yeah, very
like
much
what
so.
Did you think was going to happen? Like when California came out swinging and then you came out swinging, did you think you would just wipe your hands together and go, well, that settles that. Looks like we're done. No one's going to talk. No one's going to want to write stories. I mean, this whole thing has made Activision Blizzard look so bad, and more so Blizzard, I guess, because a lot of the complaints are specifically Blizzard, not necessarily things that went on Activision, but I think there are some at Activision. But anyway, this whole thing has made so many executives and the company look so horrible. And a lot of the same stuff that is said at other places keeps being repeated. One of them is the HR thing. In every single story that's written about Activision Blizzard, there's always someone, and I'm not saying this to demean them. I'm saying this just, I don't know how it gets like this. There's always someone that says, well, HR was useless.
Right, yeah.
Well, what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, it's so ridiculous. And at so many different companies, that's a theme that hits every single time.
Every time. Yes, sir.
Another one is how many people are afraid of retaliation. So they speak anonymously in fear of retaliation. So a lot of these places have really similar themes. But yeah, I think maybe one of the things that I'm most surprised by was just how unprepared the company seems for this, especially considering that there was 2 years leading up.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't know that the state of California, the Department of Fair and Equal Housing, was going to sue them. Maybe they had no idea. They sure seemed like they had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man.
Exploitation can only go so far. And I think that these companies have, for a very long time, especially in the gaming industry, have went so long without having to deal with this type of stuff.
You know, that's a really good point.
And now the landscape is changing. They probably felt like they were going to be okay at the end of it, you know, and they didn't need to do anything. It was as simple as just denying everything and saying that these people were liars. But these employees are tired of it. And one thing that I feel is fairly obvious to the working person, but not necessarily those in higher up and higher power, is that without us, there's no you. And eventually, if you're treating, you know, your employees as fodder, then it's going to come back to you someday. And this is a lot.
It's a lot. There was this,
compared to Ubisoft, compared to all these other companies, like, oh my Lord, this is a lot.
And again, it's not necessarily, when you say a lot, I don't think we mean, because I'm saying a lot too. I'm saying this is over
sure.
I'm not saying that this
is an immense. This
isn't necessarily
stuff.
Worse. Like, I'm not in the business of trying to figure out which one is worse or better situations, whatever. But in terms of it's continuing, and it's every week there's a new story, new sources, new people. I feel like Ubisoft, a lot of stuff happened, and then it sat for a while. Yeah. Blizzard, it seems like there's updates all the time.
Right.
At least in the past few weeks. I had a thought. Oh, so yeah, you know, in the Washington Post story, there was an anecdote about someone, and she was named. I may try and look this up. It was an employee who do you remember the story a while back about Activision Blizzard employees like skipping out on lunches? Do you remember this?
Oh, like to
vaguely?
Work?
Yeah, like skipping out on lunches at work because they didn't want to pay for lunch or whatever.
I don't think I recall this.
So it was something that came out, and it was a story, and for a good reason, there was outrage.
Right.
And that led to Activision Blizzard employees sharing their salaries and stuff like that. Anyway, in I think the Washington Post story, there was an anecdote about someone who, to save on expenses, they were eating Nestle hot chocolate packs, like the powder, apparently, for lunch.
What?
And I don't even understand how that works or how that's real.
Yeah, okay.
But it's crazy. I don't know. In an industry that makes so much money, and there's as far as the salaries that I know about, game directors they're not making pennies. They make good money. Now, again, I don't know people's financial situations. And California, it's like a studio apartment costs $1 billion a year. So I understand all that. Right. But still, it's like these companies make so much money. I just don't know how that's possible. Like, it's just crazy to me. And the only thing that I can compare this to when we talk about the executives and stuff is sports, because it's the only thing that I know well enough to compare it to. Right. And it's funny because just like last week, the NFL or Forbes released a list of the most valuable NFL franchises, right? And the second was the New England Patriots, who have won half the Super Bowls since the 1960s, right?
Okay.
But the most valuable franchise was the Dallas Cowboys, who have been a 500 mediocre trash fire since
the mid-90s.
Since the early 90s, after Jimmy Johnson left, right? Yeah. But they've made a ton of money because their brand, right?
Texas.
So, yeah, exactly. And the point I'm trying to make here is like, these companies make a ton of money, but the quality in games at Blizzard has been on a decline, slow decline, right? Since Activision took over. And Activision hasn't made... Call of Duty is Call of Duty every year.
Every year.
It's the same thing. Yep. So, and I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm not saying it's horrible, but it's Call of Duty. So there you go. But they continue to make money. And I guess what frustrates me is I don't know how an industry that is focused so much on upping profits, on maximizing efficiency, on cutting costs, like Blizzard, Activision Blizzard is. One, doesn't have things in place to protect from harassment, this kind of stuff. Two, has employees that were apparently eating Nestle hot chocolate mix for lunch.
Can't even subsidize their lunches.
Like, and again, it seems unbelievable. But it's in a story reporter. If it was something I saw on Twitter, I would, I don't know about that. But it was in the Washington Post.
What if it was on Twitter with a link?
Well, if there was a link to the Washington Post, I would believe it.
You're right. Activision Blizzard particularly, one of the companies that Activision owns is King, who makes Candy Crush. Candy Crush on mobile. Billions and billions of dollars.
Ton.
And they don't have to do anything. I'm oversimplifying it. Like, of course they have to develop. Of course they do. But it's like...
They have work to do, yeah.
And I've said... this is going to be like third or fourth time it says this. I'm playing Warzone, and there's like anime skins for your gun. $25. And it's just a skin.
Yeah.
And I see so many guys running around with that. This is free... They are literally getting free money. Mm-hmm. And they can't use even an iota of that to... help the people who make this stuff.
And I understand the economics of the video game industry are complicated. We should preface every podcast
We're not experts.
with that statement, right? We understand the economics are super complicated, and if Sean Lane were in here, he'd tell us all about how ridiculous a game's budget is, and we understand all that. Mm-hmm. But sorry, back to my sports analogy.
No.
One of the show over. No, one of the reasons that I think professional sports are there's so much parity right now is because of athletic unions, right? Of the NFL Players Union and stuff like that. Yeah. So when players collectively bargain and stuff like that, if it weren't for that, you'd have a bunch of Jerry Joneses running horrible franchises, making tons of money, but it's like...
He died, right?
No, Jerry Jones is still alive.
He's still alive.
He is. Sorry. So the point I'm trying to get to is I saw more talk about unionization, and the more stuff that comes out and is discussed, like even if you're someone who is politically super against unionization and all that, fine, whatever. I just don't see, like at this point, I don't see how else the video game industry can deal with all this stuff unless all companies across the board say, all right, that's it. We're gutting crunch, we're gutting harassment, and we're going to get a perfect utopian industry going. Yeah. Unless you do that, like I don't see how the industry can fix itself when, one, this stuff continues to happen, and two, so many companies like Activision Blizzard, their priorities are cutting costs, unrealistic deadlines, and... the more money that they've made does not equal the better games that they've made.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I guess I'm just saying this to a straw man who's like, well, this is all bad, but no unionization. And you know what? Politically, whatever. Like, I can't debate you on that. But what else is there developers to do? And another thing is HR departments. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't have an HR department, who else has your back? I'm not saying unions are perfect alternatives but it's something.
They've gotten things done, yeah.
It's something, right, to go to when you don't have an HR department that's there to help you. I've got a lot of thoughts in my head, and none of this is about me. This is all people that work in the industry. And the other thing that we keep hearing is, I love my job. I love working at Activision Blizzard. This is what I want to do, but it sucks. It's just like... I don't know, man. Like, that's heartbreaking, you know?
Yeah.
As people that love video games and love the art form and love everything about it. Like, it would suck if Steven Spielberg was like, hey, I love Jurassic Park, but I hate making movies, because that would suck, right? And so it's disheartening when you hear developers talk like that. Because you don't want people's passion to be squashed because an industry is careless and heartless, and then it runs out of talent, and then who knows what happens after that. But anyway, sorry, I think I'm done just yelling stuff into a void. Do you have anything else you want to say?
I don't.
Okay, moving on. Only one of Epic's first wave exclusives made money. Okay, this is a really interesting story. And this story had graphs and sales figures, and I was
graphs.
like, this is Richard. This is all Richard. Sales figures and numbers and all kinds of fun stuff. So this is according to documents first reported on by Simon Carless in his Games Discover Co. newsletter. The documents are part of the ongoing Epic Apple court battle, and in them is a slide from 2019 and a 2019 internal Epic Game Store presentation to company directors. Game titles are redacted, but release dates aren't. And it shows you in this table, it shows you, I think, how much money they paid for exclusivity, how much money they made back.
Yeah.
I think there's some other stuff, but those are the two main things. How much they paid to get on Epic Game Store, and how much money they got, how much they return on their investment, whatever. So there was one specific game that made a return on its investment that wasn't in the negative ROI, and we think it's Satisfactory. You can't confirm because everything is redacted, but on the day Satisfactory released, and it had the release dates,
Right.
this game was purchased for $11.5 million, and it made, I think in 12 months, $11.6 million.
Hot damn.
So it just broke even and got up there. It's important to note, however, that Epic probably did not expect to make a ton of money when they went out tossing dollar bills to people when they first did this. So this may have been something where they expected to take a hit for some sort of long term.
I feel like Tim Sweeney has confidently said that.
I think he has.
Because ultimately, like, their goal is not to. Of course, everyone's goal is to make money, but they want to shake the tree.
Yes.
They want to shake the tree a lot, and I think Epic has done that successfully, more so than like Google has with Stadia.
Oh yeah.
People keep talking about Epic Games every week because they give out a free game every week, and these are good games. Like actually, I forgot what's.
They gave out Alien Isolation twice.
This week is Rebel Galaxy. Next week is like Yooka-Laylee and Void Bastards.
Sure.
So I mean, they're all solid titles, and everyone loves a free game.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't guarantee that someone who redeems a free game on Epic Game Store will continue to stay on Epic Game Store or purchase games from Epic Game Store, but they do have a lot of cool benefits, like they're giving out $10 coupons like candy, to use for a lot of the games out there, and I think they're doing a admirable job keeping their storefront in the news, unlike Origin has,
Well, Origin's basically obsolete.
Yeah, Origin is, as far as I'm concerned, a part of Steam and Game Pass.
Yeah.
And
That's fast. Sorry,
they're a DRM now. It's a DRM now, is what it is. And Ubisoft, you play Ubisoft Play?
You play.
Plus. You play.
Plus.
Uplay, yeah.
Something they have their own service.
And I mean, Uplay is there.
Yeah,
it's literally just for Ubisoft games, pretty much. But I think they've done a fine job at, like I said, keeping themselves in people's mouths, talking about it every week. But I do think that there are now. Epic Game Store has been around for what, a year and a half, 2 years now.
I want to say 2018, 2019. We'll say 2 years.
Okay. I think at this point in time, they are still obviously behind, but there should have been upgrades already.
Yeah.
To the interface, to functionality. I logged onto my account from my phone, and I could not see any like thing I purchased or like any of my like transactions, and that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like it was like all I could do was like, hey, do you want to download it? You got to get on a PC, and it's like, okay, well, why have the phone website if I can't do this?
Yeah,
so,
sure.
But yeah, I don't think they're worried about it with Fortnite money.
No, and this was their first year, so they've had more since, I think.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I think they just announced that they're going to have some more exclusives coming up. And you know, I understand people's frustration with that. Like, I get it, and I also don't like the fact that a storefront has, you know, had a roadmap and stuff like that. Even if realistically, I understand that you're. It's like you can't do everything at once, so we're slowly building our, you know, when Rome wasn't built in a day, right? And Steam wasn't Steam when it launched. But I still, even with that said, I understand people's frustration and stuff like that. At the same time, anything that gives developers more money, I'm all for, right? And I do not begrudge a developer for taking an exclusivity deal at all. With how hard it is to make games, with how competitive it is, with how finicky Steam's discoverability can be and stuff like that, and how it's been manipulated in the past. I do not begrudge people at all when they take the deal. I did some Googling that I should not have done.
Oh, no.
And I found the Fuck Epic Reddit.
Oh boy.
And if I read the comments correctly, people were like checking which games they could boycott because they were first released on Epic and stuff like that. I thought it was completely silly. Because it's just like, you know, I just don't see the point of that. Is it whatever? We're not.
Yeah.
What it is, what it is. Like if you want a better industry, you want developers to be making more money, and that's what they've done. But I don't know if thus far it's been a big enough threat for Steam to really.
No.
Like it doesn't seem like Steam is all that worried, and that's based on nothing but just Steam released a VR headset. They just announced a handheld.
Yeah.
So
Steam is doing fine. Actually, you know what? Steam is not even paying attention to Epic. Which I guess we kind of all already assumed what would happen. But I think Epic's biggest worry is not Steam, it's Game Pass.
Yeah.
Because an exclusivity deal on Epic Game Store, is that really, for an independent developer, is that really better than being day one on Game Pass? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, there already have been articles showing that Game Pass owners who've played particular independent games are still buying those independent games.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like they're really? Even if they're free, if they like it enough, they've been buying them still.
Ooh, that's a fascinating metric.
I do believe that is actually a I don't want to say psychological, but there is a connection between either releasing a free demo or releasing a trial linked to purchases.
Sure.
Of games. And so I think Game Pass, even though sure you pay for it every month, I think people view it as a rental service. And there are a lot of people out there, if they rent it, they will like it and buy it. So
yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as Netflix, only you're not streaming. And it's the same thing as all those streaming services. It's just you download the games, which is better.
Absolutely.
Which is wholly superior, I think.
And I admit it, I redeem these free games on Epic Game Store. I've never played them. I've never, opened up my Epic Games Store. I've just redeemed them, and that's it. Called the day.
I have played a few of mine. I played Alien Isolation. There was a game, I forget what this game was called, but it's based on an RPG, a tabletop RPG, where it's a couple animal, anthropomorphic, I think is the word, animals, Hogman and Duckman. Mutant, yeah. And it's like an XCOM.
Yeah.
I played a lot of that. So I've played here and there different games that came out on Epic.
I think I played Ape Out.
Oh, Ape Out, okay. But yeah, I would agree with you there. And I would think, you've got this, if this is a Western, It's like you have Epic and Steam sitting across the poker table, but in the back is like Xbox Game Pass, and he is the Aragorn.
He's the bartender.
he's the Aragorn. Dude. Okay. He's sitting there, and he's the real badass. Not these guys. So Xbox Game Pass, I think I would agree, is the wild card here.
Yeah.
And you know what would be fascinating?
Did you say Epic Game Pass?
I may have Xbox Game Pass. Epic Game Pass. Oh no, no. Xbox Game Pass. But what would be fascinating is if you're a developer or whatever, and both Epic and Xbox Game Pass came to you and they're like, "Hey, here's X amount of money to put your game on a Xbox Game Pass day one," and you're like, "Sorry, Epic. Xbox Game Pass, offered us this," and Epic's like, "Oh, we'll up that by 10%." And you're like, "Oh, sorry, Game Pass." Like that'd be interesting. I wonder if that's ever happened, where someone's been able to get themselves into a bidding war or something.
It's possible.
If there's enough money at stake.
Yeah, the thing is, we won't know that. Like they won't tell us. No one will tell us.
Yeah.
It's a business. But the thing, like, you have to also think about like. How
and I think that's great for developers. If a developer gets into a bidding war between Epic Game Store and Xbox Game Pass, I'm so happy for them. Make all the money you can make. In the words of Steve Miller Band, take the money and run. Like make all the money you can and have fun.
There's lots of like demographics to look at as well, because there are way more people buying PCs nowadays, but they're buying PCs and they aren't playing games like the ones that are released on Epic Game Store. They're playing Warzone, they're playing Apex, they're streaming, they're in a specific bubble. They may branch out and play those games sometimes, whereas like once again with Xbox, if you have more people buying Xbox Ones, Xbox Series S's, X's, and then they get Game Pass and they see those games, they're going to have a bigger chance of trying it out and purchasing it down the line, whereas I don't think a lot of people on PC would blink twice. Like, and we've had this discussion when you started talking about Chernobyl Light and how I said that this is a game that I can only see on PC, but how many people are going to play that game? Like, there may be 3,000 like positive reviews. I'm just giving a number, but
sure,
how many more people beyond that will actually play Chernobyl Light? Will it become a hit like Phasmophobia?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I don't know why I think about that stuff.
Well, no, so
no, I'm right. You're wrong.
We'll do it live. I don't know why I decided to. So one thing I think you brought up that's interesting is that the games and people that buy games, the games industry today, game consumers. I think today, more than 15, 20 years ago, there is a larger market of people that they play Destiny 2, Yeah. There's some slob, and all he does is play Apex Legends, and that's it, Gotcha. No. So and it's all they do, right? It's just they have a game, right? And I remember a long time ago in a Super Bunny Hop video, before the games as a service thing went nuts, there was another phrase, and it was lifestyle game, right? The idea was that it was the same thing, games as a service lifestyle game, but this is the game that you play that you're on the majority of your time. Okay. Maybe it's Destiny 2, maybe it's Division, whatever, right? Now the point I'm trying to get to here is if you're that person who, that's fine if you are. I'm not saying you're bad or dumb or anything, of course. Spend your time how you want. You're not that guy. But you're not the person who's then going to want to play 5 different games on Xbox Game Pass, right?
I am.
But yeah, and you specifically maybe, but I wonder how big the market is of people that, hey, I play Apex and I don't really care about what's on Xbox Game Pass or the Epic Game Store or whatever, right? And the only reason I'm bringing it up is just because I feel like 15, 20 years ago, there was always something else if you were playing video games, if you had a console, there was always something else you were going to play, right?
Yeah. There's always a battle in the generations. There's always a fight. It's like, it may not be a big fight, but there's always, I don't know, for some reason what you said like clicked in my head. Like in the 90s, it was like renting games. like renting games. It's huge. And there were particularly like Blockbuster, you would have games that were only released at Blockbuster or you could only rent it at Blockbuster. That was the only way you can get it. And now, unfortunately, those games are incredibly expensive. But like later on, like the fight became like, oh, which system has better graphics, which system is better to play on, and then it's like which has better online service, which, you know, and so there's always stuff like that, and then this just seems like it's the next one, maybe not for the consumer, but for the developer. It's like their battle, because that whole spiel that I gave right before you started talking was basically, it came down to where do I go? Game Pass, what's going to be the better for me down the line, Game Pass or Epic Game Store?
Yeah.
And Epic Game Store is exclusivity if it's timed. I mean, that's free money, because, you know, you'll take that money, you could run and make your next game, and then, you know, when it exclusive ends and goes back to Steam as well, then you might get more kickback. I mean, that's a good plan, but like I said, the Game Pass also has a longevity deal as well that could end up netting you residuals down the line also.
Yeah, I think to get back to Epic, and I agree with some of the problems that Epic has, or people have with the Epic Game Store. Like, yeah, there's no user reviews, and that kind of sucks, you know? It's like every online retailer, everything has some form of user reviews right now, except Epic Game Store, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think with how difficult it is to make money in the games landscape, how tight budgets can be, and stuff like that, I think more options to increase your margins is great. And so I want to use the term necessary evil, but I think that may be the necessary annoyance, maybe, because it's not evil what Epic is doing. At worst, it's
competitive.
At least it's annoying, and at worst, it's maybe a little unethical, depending on a few other things. But
gotta follow the ABCs. Always be competitive.
But yeah, anyway, so I think we'll close with that. Are you ready for tidbits?
Yeah, always.
You sure?
Yeah.
You sure?
Maybe.
A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits.
Hey, all right.
Hey, we're back. And we're back.
GTA Trilogy Remastered
What?
is releasing this year, according to Kotaku. Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and San Andreas will supposedly be released on most platforms, including Nintendo Switch. All games are supposedly being remastered with Unreal Engine and will be a mixture of old and new graphics. Rockstar Dundee is helping with development. They're also helping with development on the next-gen versions of GTA 5.
Oh, this is just today this was reported. Okay.
And Rockstar Dundee apparently used to be Ruffian Games, which, if you aren't familiar with the name, they made Crackdown and Crackdown 2.
Oh, okay.
And then they helped with, I think they did APB, which that game had a lot of promise and obviously did not turn out well. So
Crackdown is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Because the first Crackdown was like cool or whatever. The second Crackdown, Halo 3 beta.
No. That was the first one.
Oh,
that was the first one.
Oh, so
I was working GameStop at that time. Yes, that was the first.
Is Halo 3 beta.
And
the second one was cool, and the third one was in development hell, and then it was just really bad. It's just a strange history.
I always remember at launch day I was working GameStop and I was selling Crackdown. And I sold it to some guy. I was like, "Hey, enjoy the game, man." And he's like, "I don't give a shit about this game. I just want to play Halo, like the Halo 3 beta." And I was like, "All right, man, like, cool, I guess."
Now, do you remember? Because I remember back in the day at GameStop, you could put $5 down to pre-order a game.
You could.
And you'd get the beta code, and then you could just, like in a month, you could just refund your pre-order.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So why the hell did that guy take Crackdown? What's he thinking?
There was an awesome point in time when DLC started to like get more, prevalent in like 2008 to 2010 ish at GameStop. When you'd pre-order, you would get codes. Well, on my side, when I was the cashier, you could just enter the promo code for the pre-order and just print out a code. So any any game I wasn't picking up first day or whatever, like I would just put in the code and it would print out the DLC code for me, and I'll just redeem it at home. So I got a lot of. I mean, it was always just dumb stuff like unlock this gun skin or something, you know. But that was the fun times. I always think about those days. Huh. Phil Spencer comments on Game Pass coming to Nintendo Switch. In a conversation with Games Radar, Phil Spencer, head of Xbox. That's right. Was asked about the possibility of Game Pass coming to Nintendo Switch. Phil Spencer stated, "We have no plans to bring it to any other kind of closed platforms right now, mainly because those closed platforms don't want something like Game Pass. There are a ton of open platforms out there for us to grow in, the web, PC, and mobile, so all of our focus, frankly, is on those platforms." Smart plan.
So did I understand right that Nintendo Switch is a no for
off
now?
the table.
It's off the table.
Yeah,
I don't think Nintendo cares.
No.
I don't think Nintendo's going to sleep like a baby.
Hey, Nintendo Switch has been out since 2017. All right? We're in its fourth year? 2017?
Yeah, 2021, sure.
Not a single price drop.
Man.
And usually in 2 years, a system will get a price drop.
Yeah.
General in 2 years. 4 years, not a single price drop.
Do you think that's because how much cheaper is the Mini or whatever it's called?
The OLED, it's more expensive. It's $50 more.
The one that doesn't
the Switch
have
Lite,
the chucks.
it's $100 less, but nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
And you can't dock that, right?
No. That's why nobody cares.
Yeah.
No, like a couple of weeks ago, I had 5 or 6 of them in my glass case just sitting there. And do you have a Switch? And I was like, I got the Switch Lite. I don't want that one. So, okay, well, it does the same thing. Just can't play it on TV.
Yeah.
Which is I get it.
It's a deal breaker.
Yeah. Spencer also stated that crossplay is an important aspect of the gaming landscape right now and should be utilized all the time. And I agree because I have a friend, I'm not going to name names, but he plays PC only and we want to play games with him. And crossplay is a godsend for some of these games because we get to all play together because we're buds.
I wonder what the philosophy is behind that, because Phil Spencer says, hey, it's because everyone should play together and stuff like that.
He usually says Xbox.
So in general then, but I still feel like there has to be what's in it for Xbox that they can crossplay with PlayStation. You know, see what I'm saying here? Like what's in it for
gamer happiness?
Yeah, maybe that. Like maybe I'm just more cynical. But I wonder if there's any monetary incentive.
You're right to be cynical because it is. What is the monetary kickback for doing that?
Now you could one piece of evidence you could use against that is that PlayStation kept saying no for so long.
Well, that's true. I mean, once again, this is coming from many years in retail. There are. It would be a small group of people that would buy the console that they like. I've had plenty of people would trade in their Xbox or their PS4 because their friends are on the other console and they would get the other console. So with crossplay, and I guess this doesn't really make sense, but I'm saying it anyways. With crossplay, people could be content with this console that they have. They wouldn't be forced to switch to anything.
Yeah, sure.
So.
And I guess for Xbox, because Game Pass is going to be on so much stuff, again, their ecosystem. So they're less worried about people getting Series X's or Series S's than they are getting into the Xbox ecosystem somehow.
Xbox.
Thanks, Phil. Next one.
You got to say it 3 times. We summon a Series S.
Oh, no.
Series X. These next 2 are very quick. Activision bans 50,000 cheaters from Call of Duty Warzone.
Yay.
Apparently one of the bigger issues going on with that game right now. I don't know about the other ones because I don't play it and I'm not in the community, whatever. And lastly, Idris Elba has been cast as Knuckles the Echidna in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Did not see that one coming, of course, but... that's great. I don't know how he's going to do that voice because Knuckles usually doesn't have a very deep. Idris Elba has a very deep voice, so I don't know how that's gonna work. But
man,
I hope he mentions Pumpkin Hill though, because that's a great thing.
I don't know how to put this. I want Elba to be in other stuff.
Yeah.
He's such a good actor.
He is.
And maybe he's been in stuff that I just haven't watched. The only good thing in Prometheus is his performance.
Yeah, he was great.
Other than that, the entire movie is garbage. But his performance as the pilot is the best thing about that movie.
Yeah, he was wonderful.
Yep. Anyway, okay. Continue. Sorry.
No, that's it. That's all. That's it.
Alrighty. We'll end the podcast then.
Yeah, next week or the weekend, whenever we have our podcast next,
we'll talk about it on Twitter, on Facebook,
NPDs,
and we'll do NPDs, and we'll post the schedule what we're gonna do.
NPDs nuts.
So follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos. Go check out the Claire de Lune review, and we'll see you next week.
Bye bye.